Hello and welcome to Real Opinions, and today I'm going to be reviewing For the Love of the Boogeyman, 40 Years of Halloween. This is a bit different from the normal kind of coverage we do on here because it is a documentary, kind of, but it's more like a video essay, a retrospective dissection of John Carpenter's landmark slasher film that's obviously trying to capitalize on the fact that the new movie's coming out and that it's the 40th anniversary of the original. So it's piecing together testimonials from dedicated fans and independent filmmakers, and exploring how the initially unassuming exploitation film has gradually evolved into a bona fide classic. The short also considers what elevates Halloween above its peers and why it has become such a treasured artifact for cinephiles and aspiring directors alike. If you asked any genre enthusiast, or any horror enthusiast more specifically, to break down what makes Halloween so impactful, then they are all but guaranteed to have a full-blown thesis prepared for such an occasion. With notes by their side, they will readily launch into an impassioned sermon, expounding upon the film's merit as a cinematic milestone, and waxing poetic about everything from its economic use of lighting, to its meticulous shot compositions and its atmospheric score. There's certainly no shortage of people lining up to fillet Carpenter's iconic masterpiece. I myself wrote a particularly conceited essay about it at university, despite being unable to formulate a remotely compelling argument. I just ended up reiterating what countless others had already articulated before me, and ultimately failed to say anything more insightful than, "It's well creepy, innit?" Which is kind of the point that I'm gonna apply to this entire film, because unfortunately a similar critique can be levelled at For the Love of the Boogeyman. It doesn't really give any insightful new information or make you think about Halloween in any new interesting ways. It's just people repeating over and over again, Halloween is good, I like Halloween, and you have that for about 50 minutes. It feels a bit sycophantic, if I'm honest. It tellingly markets itself as being made by fans and for fans, which I think is possibly part of the problem, because it feels like no one wants to think about Halloween critically or try and look at it from a new perspective. They just want to take part in this fawning circle jerk with little to no substance and a startling lack of fresh ideas. So in that sense, it's strikingly reminiscent of my flimsy uni assignment, only it's much longer than that was, and it has less uses of the word thus. There's no illuminating analysis to speak of here, just people repeating variations on the phrase first and last word in genre filmmaking, which would be fine if you were doing a quick review or perhaps a blog post. Even a video review like this, it would be fine if you didn't have a new perspective. But that's not enough to justify a 40-minute project that's got all these different interviewees. What's worse is that over the course of the piece, alternate readings are never even hinted at, so it's all got this very narrow tunnel vision view of the film. This is partly because the talking heads are all interchangeable with the same interests and matching opinions, so they all talk about it from the same bland position and just sort of repeat everything. There's no contrast to the discussion here, no variety, no back and forth, just people rabbiting on in circles about how much they love a 40-year-old movie. And given that none of the presenters actually worked on Halloween, which means that they can't give you any behind-the-scenes information, you'd think that they'd at least have interesting takes so that their commentary is worth listening to, but they don't. They just offer banal praise of every facet of the filmmaking, like they're dutifully ticking off all of the Oscar categories. Oh, the acting is great, the directing is great, the cinematography is great, the production design is great. It's just a surface-level appraisal that only serves to endorse a pre-established consensus. Like, you don't need to tell anyone that Halloween's good, everyone knows. It's a fantastic movie, and that's pretty well cemented by now. If that's all you've got to say, then your project has more in common with just, like, a podcast or just a Jeremy Johns review than it does an actual documentary. Although this shortcoming is disappointing, it isn't necessarily a deal breaker. After all, it can be nice to listen to people talk passionately about something they love. I do it all the time. I just put on YouTube to listen to people gush about films, but you think they need to have something original to contribute. And what severely hampers this film is that the sound bites that people are delivering, the things that are being said, are near identical. Like, it's fine if everyone wants to just praise Halloween, but they don't need to say almost the exact same lines. That's what's so annoying. It's like they're not just on the same page, but the same fucking sentence on the page. Because every time that someone comments on something, then you have to listen to the same point being repeated ad nauseum by about 20 other people. And it feels like you're in some kind of hellish echo chamber. Of course, it's only natural that people have similar feelings when talking about one of the greatest horror films ever made. The talking heads aren't necessarily to blame for this, but if you're the person putting this documentary together, then it's your job to weed out duplications like this, or at least structure the documentary in a different way, so that you don't feel like you're just getting repetition all the time. Because the way that they are edited together, and the way that they are all organised, really emphasises that they're all saying the same thing. Because they put these identical sound bites right next to each other. Speaking of the editing, the rhythm of the cutting here is awfully distracting, as we're constantly jumping around between talking heads without a chance to properly settle into any of them. You rarely stay with a single person for longer than 10 seconds, so none of them are afforded the opportunity to expand upon their arguments, or give evidence for what they're saying. Sometimes you can even hear them being cut, like, mid-sentence, which is something you can hear in our videos, but we're not releasing a film. It all just adds to this insubstantial feeling that presides over the entire documentary, where everything comes across as really slight and bitty. At least the visuals are okay, because you cycle through lots of different locations, and they have all this cool memorabilia to look at in the background. There's also some original artwork that they use to, like, paste over some of the talking heads just to break things up, and some of that looks really nice. I think the artists are called Paul Steyer and Nathan Thomas Milliner. I jotted down their names because I thought, these people are putting in more effort than anyone else here. It would have been nice to have clips from Halloween involved here as well to better illustrate points and break up the interviews. But I imagine there might have been legal obstructions preventing this from happening, and I won't blame anyone because this documentary is on YouTube, and we all know what YouTube's fucking copyright system's like. So I'm not gonna hold that against anyone. Overall, For the Love of the Boogeyman is a rather simplistic and undercooked offering. You could argue that its intention is not really to pick apart its subject, and it's actually just trying to celebrate it, especially on the anniversary of its landmark release. But if that's the case, then I think they could have done that in a more entertaining way.